Well, build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance to spit in his eye. Well, they gave me bars, but I can see between to a dusty yard and long gone green. They call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I drown my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone. I'm sober as good.
Hello everybody, welcome to Longbangers. I'm your host Matty, and tonight I'm joined, we'll do the usuals first. Brian, how are you doing?
Very well, Matthew. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. We were just saying as we're about to come on, you're looking a bit like a character from This Is England.
Aye, I'll take that.
Aye, and again you've got your retro Dundee 1986 Albert Kidd vintage tracky top on, which I'm a big fan of.
I'm too cool for a dressing gown, so I tend to just wear leisure wear at home.
And we've got John on tonight as well. John, you're not in a dressing gown either, which is good news. How are you doing?
No, I'm just in a scabby Primark hoodie. But I've been a bit of a tone-faced disaster recently, but actually I'm in a pretty good mood. And coincidentally, it's actually Longbangers 86.
Ooh.
Is it? Ah, there you go. Episode 86. We should really have planned ahead and had some wee homage to Albert Kidd in it. But fuck the Hearts, that's as far as we'll go.
It's here.
And we're also delighted to be joined by a special guest tonight, author of the books From Oblivion to Hampden and The Hibs Are Here, Miller to Millennium, Ian Colquhoun. Ian, how are you doing?
Good evening. Good, thanks. How are you?
All good, yeah. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. We'll kick off and talk about your book then, Ian. So, for anybody who doesn't know about it, what's it all about?
Well, the last book took us up from when Alex Miller took over to the season we won the Skull Cup. And this is kind of picking up the torch and telling the rest of the Alex Miller era story from 92 to 96. However, that wouldn't be such a happy ending for a book. So I took it story right up to the end of the Millennium and covered the Jockey Scott, Jim Duffy and the start of Alex McLeish as well.
I'll tell you one thing, see, for a man who's written a book about Miller's years extensively, I would expect you here to be the colour of mine. I'm a bit fucking annoyed about this.
I'm getting there. They call me the Badger now.
Oh, I used to get that. When my hair was going grey, folk would say you look like a badger, and then they'd say it's quite distinguished. And for the life of me, I kind of think a distinguished looking badger. So I never accepted that one. So you've got loads of interviewees in this book, Ian. You've got Keith Wright, Stephen Tweed, Kevin McAllister, Jim Duffy, Graham Mitchell, David Farrell, Chris Jackson, Mark McGraw, and Martin Ferguson. Have I missed anybody?
No, I think you got them all.
I'd like to pretend I never had that written down. I had it written down. So how did you go about getting in touch with everybody and getting them on board for it?
Well, I already knew Keith from doing, because he was interviewed in From Oblivion to Hampden, so Keith was good enough to talk to me. For the rest of the guys, I just got in touch with the Hibs Ex-Player Association, and I contacted them by either email. Actually, two I contacted by good old-fashioned snail mail. That's how I got Kevin McAllister.
He looks like the sort of person that wouldn't have email with.
All I had was an address, and then most of the interviews were done in like a 2 to 3 week period. Like my phone started to blow up. Like one night I'm sitting watching Ashes to Ashes on Netflix, and it comes up on my phone, Jim Duffy, and I'm diving through to the office to conduct a hasty interview, but these guys were good enough to give up their time, although it was kind of easy with the lockdown,
Yeah.
And got some fascinating insight off them. They spoke so well about their time at Hibs, all of them. And you're Hibs fans yourself. It's amazing chatting away to legends.
Aye. So this book covers from 1992, so just after the Skull Cup win, up to the Millennium. So we exchanged text earlier on today, Ian, and we found out we're the same age, right? So 43-year-olds. And for me, Alec Miller's team was really the first Hibs team that I can remember watching. So that was kind of the team that I grew up with. What were your memories of that time? What sticks in the mind?
Of course, it's big changes. But think about it, when Alex Miller came in, we had Terracing, got rid of the electronic scoreboard. We had the old transfer system. But my fondest memories of the Alex Miller days are just the simple act of going to the football. When you're a wee boy, you're not so bothered about formations, tactics. It's just a buzz going to the football. Like yourself, I've started supporting Hibs when Alec Miller first came in, and I was a boy, and I was an adult when he left. And there's a generation of Hibbies who've got that. And it was fascinating to go over it again and to write it all down, although obviously some of it was a bit frustrating to think about as well.
I can imagine. Brian, you would have been going to the games as a wee boy at that point, and anybody who listens to the podcast, okay, we're still no interested in formations and tactics and that. What are your memories of that era?
To be honest, I was heavily influenced by my dad, who took me to the games initially, because I think I've spoken about him before on the podcast. He is the most miserable bastard that's ever walked the earth. So I remember my first ever game, I think we beat Motherwell 2-0. And me obviously not really knowing the rules, I would only have been, 5, 6, 7. I actually walked out the ground thinking we'd got beat because my dad had complained that much. And then I walked out Easter Road thinking, I don't know if we won, if we lost, did we not win by enough? So I was heavily skewed by him and his scathing attacks on Hibs. But I think my overriding memory was, probably looking back at it now, with the players that we had, we should have been more entertaining than what we were. I don't know if that's maybe down to Miller's sort of dour personality, if that kind of influences your memory of his teams. But I'd said to you before, any team with Jackson, Wright, Harper, McAllister, O'Neill, you'd expect to be entertained, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. You definitely would. And to be fair, like we mentioned it earlier on, I think there was that particular vintage under Miller was a cracking team. You actually were quite entertaining, but they were bookended by some fucking dreadful teams. John, who was in charge when you started going?
When I started going myself, it would have been McLeish in what would have been the first division then. Like, I'd been at a couple of games before that, so I was introduced to Hibs by my old man. He took me to Hibs against Brecon because a mate of his for the post office played for Brecon. I think Hibs won 2-1, and the next game that he took me to was against St Johnstone. Both times sat in the cowshed, and I've just got these vivid memories of them, and they're still, I wouldn't say they're like precious to me, they just stick in my mind for some reason. The second game was St Johnstone. I'm pretty sure that Hibs were 2-0 up at half time, and Stephen Tweed had scored what seemed to me like a 40-yard header into the Dunbar end. I remember my old man set me up to the pie stand up the back of the cowshed, and I just remember two boys in the queue for their pie talking about being 2-0 up, and someone, might have been Brian's old man, actually going, aye, but there's still 45 minutes to go. Like, just the possibility we might get beat 3-2 of St Johnstone. But I have slightly different memories from you guys because, like I say, when I started taking myself along, it was a totally different era. We had McLeish. We still had that sort of revolving door signing policy. It was before transfer windows, but it was post Bosman. And I think Hibs in the or in the first division then went on something like a 15-game unbeaten run. So, and it was a good time. You think, Christ, this is what Hibs are going to be like every week.
I tell you what, it's something that we
really
could be quite envious here, because I would have loved to have been like my first taste of Hibs being McLeish. When you're going in and seeing Soze and Latape kind of strutting their stuff, that would be a different experience to like Davy Fellinger or Brian Hamilton or some of the boys at
that and the fact
time.
he would sign a player in the morning, probably one about 4:30, and then maybe sign another player at about 8:30. The Cleese just went bonkers.
Aye,
brilliant.
The Cleese was on several signings a day at points, wasn't he? It was like every day was transfer deadline day for McLeish. Yep. Ian, what was for that time? What was your favourite team?
Well, I really liked the McAllister, O'Neill, Jackson, Wright team, and then when Pat McGinley was added to it in 94, 95, that was a golden team for us. When we were on song with that team, kind of in 92 to 1995, we were battering teams when we were on song, and but for a few too many draws, we could have. Well, we did split the Old Firm, but we could have got second in 94, 95.
Yeah.
We lost the same amount of games as the champions Rangers in 94, 95, but the draws killed us, especially away from home. And that team, when Alex Miller had his peak team between 92 and the first half of season, 95, 96, that was good, apart from the derbies mostly. And with the McLeish thing that came after it, which is in the book as well, but there's not as much about that period in the book. That was a breath of fresh air, wasn't it? Suddenly we've got Soze and Latape and this foreign legion of players, when 4 years before we'd had an entirely British squad. It was just such a contrast, and the journey that took us from the Alex Miller era via the unfortunate Mr. Duffy, that's when we became a truly modern football club. So that Alex Miller team was the last old school Hibs team, and it was a good team until 1996 when we stopped spending and we started bringing in, no offence to these guys, but guys like Ian Cameron and that. Ian Cameron was no Michael O'Neill, for example.
Yeah.
So the late Alex Miller team was on its day. They could batter anybody, but Hibs being Hibs on their day, they could drive you up the bloody wall as well.
Frequently did as well. So Miller's time, I think, for me was, you could define it with two things really, which one of them was Skull Cup win, and the other one was his derby record. But when you're interviewing players through that time, do you talk about the derby record with them? Does that come up?
Yeah, I asked every single interviewee about that, unsurprisingly, except Jim Duffy, although he didn't beat them anyway. But most of the players reckon it was a psychological thing. A couple of the players thought we were playing sexy soccer and Hearts were coming out looking for a fight, and the fight tended to win. But we were also, when we were desperately unlucky in 6 or 7 of their games. Hearts were lucky, but a lot of the time they were a lot more up for it. And I think Graham Mitchell said it was a mental block for some of the lads after a while. And I don't know if you'll remember, around about 1993, this Jamaican witch doctor offered Hibs his services. It was in the papers and that. Offered the services to help them break the derby hoodoo. We probably tried to sign him.
Probably would have. Brian, would you be up with kind of witchcraft in that if it sorted out the derby record?
I think the Jamaican witch doctor was probably a 34-year-old Larry Kingston at that time. I think I have got memories of us just sort of coming away for the game, wondering how we never won. And I think the psychological thing is a big thing in football. Sometimes you are beaten before a ball's kicked, and they just seem to have that hex over us. They've still got it now, to be fair, at times when we fully expect to beat them, and we just don't. But I actually forgot you. It wasn't until you mentioned Graham Mitchell there. What a player he was.
Mitchell was a cracking player. Do you remember Mitchell, John, or was it before your time?
So, so I'd say like the 91-92 squad was just that wee bit before my time. Like I remember the video. I can't remember what it was called, but it was after the school cup win. Do you remember the one where someone throws a boot at John Burridge in the dressing room, and he goes to catch it, like, you'll never get the better of me. So I remember that sort of stuff. It's funny, just as you were talking there, I was thinking about different memories coming back, like Chris Reid saving a penalty at Ibrox. I was going to ask. The other thing I was going to mention as well was the first time Hibs ever made me cry, and it might have been the Wayne Foster derby at Easter Road.
Oh, one.
Daft stuff like that. I was going to ask Ian, did you give Jim Duffy a hard time for signing Ray Wilkins, or Lee Power, or Paul Tosh?
No. Jim's a sound guy, and he was almost so apologetic to me in the interview that I had to say to him, look, bud, it's 20 odd year ago, you did your best, and the team was actually all right briefly under him.
Did he apologise for landing a helicopter in your back garden?
I never said to him about any signings. In Duffy's defence, and I've touched on this in the Duffy managed us when there was that transitional period when Bosman had came in, but there were a lot of players tied up on pre-Bosman contracts. Yeah. And Duffy got the one summer with us, and every team in Britain knew we had the Darren Jackson money to spend, and they were putting prices up for when Hibs were making inquiries. Like, we've started off trying to get Owen Coyle and Mixu Patalainen, and we've ended up with Paul Tosh.
I tell you one that Duffy gets away with is Andy Walker. That's like a blight on Hibs. When you know what Andy Walker's like now, you kind of regret that he once played for us.
Aye, but he was also part of that really good comeback at Tynecastle when we were 2-0 down, where I think McGinley got the first and then Andy Walker got the second. I think, was that under... That would have been under McLeish, I think.
No, that was Duffy. Duffy was...
Was that Duffy?
They were 2-0 down, and Hearts actually, at one point, looked like they were threatening to run away with it. And then we came back, and McGinley and Walker scored. But that probably kept Duffy in the job just long enough to make sure we got relegated.
If it wasn't for Chris Reid that day, they'd have been 5 up at half time, and we'd have been like, it'd have been worse than that bloody cup final against them, because we were bottom of the league at the time and they were going for the title. And then again, we took 4 points off them that season.
That's good, eh?
And that comeback at Tynecastle, it did buy them more time, but at least it gave us a bit of a reprieve for a Christmas and New Year's slagging, eh?
Aye, which is always a good thing. It's hard enough at that time of year now, you look like this. So you've got the Miller years, and then, so I'm trying to remember the order they went. Miller left. So Miller resigned, didn't he? Like, I'm trying to remember what happened when Miller's time came, and then Miller resigned. I think he was sacked, was it? I think he just he picked his moment to go, if I'm right.
He actually said that he left because of the hostility at Easter Road, because at the start of season 96-97, the atmosphere at Easter Road was horrible, because we won the New Year Derby 1996, and then we only won one more game the rest of that season. And then we started season 96-97 badly. The atmosphere was terrible. Douglas Crome, God rest his soul, even had to go on the mic before the Dunfermline game to ask the fans to calm down and back the team. And Alex, when he left, in the interview, he said, I left so that the players didn't have to play amid that atmosphere anymore. And then Jockey Scott took over till Christmas. And then Jim Duffy was helicoptered in.
That's a mad time, helicoptering managers in. Brian, what would be your method of choice to announce a new manager these days?
Probably give them a sort of 5-minute skit on Babe Station, I think. Or posting, I don't know, just posing topless on a rocking horse with a scarf. Obviously, the scarf. It's not official till the scarf.
The scarf above their head. On the horse.
Probably one of those two, I think. Either or.
I don't think enough use of bungee ropes is made these days. Like, I reckon you could probably get a decent bungee jump off maybe one of the stands and just announce them kind of upside down. And you only get that split second before they bounce back up.
On the screen,
Who is it? I think it.
Pause.
So we've got that sort of era. What kind of were there any really good stories that stick out? Obviously, without giving too much of your book away, and for the folk that you interviewed, anything that kind of you thought, oh fuck, I never knew that, and can't wait to get that written down and published.
For talking to the boys, you pick things up that you weren't looking for, such as that Anderlecht tie in 1992. That was a big deal to the players, and they all the ones who were involved look back so fondly on that, and to hear it for them themselves. And remember, the Belgian league was big. Belgian teams were really good in Europe back then, and us to play match to them and almost knock them out. That's pretty big. And Graham Mitchell was gutted that he missed the second leg over in Brussels. Keith was gutted that his shot that bounced off the bar and bounced across the line and came out wasn't given at Easter Road by that dodgy German referee. And you get to learn just how much playing for Hibs meant to these guys. And even Jim Duffy, one of the things he said to me surprised me. He was at one of the games where we scalped Hearts in the Cup a few years ago. I think it was the one where when Lennon was managing us when we utterly. And he said the Sunshine on Leaf gave him goosebumps at it, and he'd wished that we were singing that when he was the manager of Hibs. And they all look back so fondly on their time at the club. And these guys are heroes, and they could, but for a few unlucky results, they would have been legends. Could have had Scottish Cup in 1995 or 1993. Almost won the League Cup in 1993. And although they don't express regret, their tales are fascinating. You'll see the interviews when you read the book, I hope. But there's more than that. Such a fascinating period, the mid to late 90s as well, because you've got 3 league reconstructions in that decade. You've got All-Seater coming in. And you've also got the Hibs fan culture thing. And then after train spotting, and then looking after Jojo and things like that, we're really cool. Like we as Hibbies, we know we're cool. But after train spotting, looking after Jojo, and there was a couple of music videos with Hibs in it, we became like more culturally relevant and cool. Ironically, that happened just as the team became absolutely pish though.
Standard.
John, have you ever been cool?
Never.
I think we're doing our best to buck that trend, Brian. Eh?
This might be the coolest I've ever been, and I get slaughtered every week.
Who was everybody's favourite in that era, in the 90s? Who were your favourite players?
Pat McGinley.
Oh, aye.
Jackson
Again, that was one of those wee snippets, wee memories that I've got for that period. It was just like an old bit of grainy footage for VHS. I think it was Jock Brown commentating maybe for Sky Sports, and he's talking about Hibs being a really good counter-attacking team, and it's Pat McGinley bursting away from his own box and heading down in the opposite direction. So he's a firm favourite of mine.
I would go with Darren Jackson. Jackson, when he had a good team around us, we were really good. But when we had a shite team, Jackson and Leighton pretty much kept us up. I mean, they almost single-handedly kept us in the top flight. Jackson was outstanding at Hibs, and he was one of the players that arrived that I didn't really have that high expectations for it. He'd gone, was it Dundee United to Newcastle, and then I think came to Hibs from Newcastle, if memory serves me right.
No, Newcastle and then Dundee United, and then we got him on a transfer tribunal for Dundee United.
Got the order a wee bit wrong, but I didn't. I always thought he was a player who was a wee bit overrated when he'd was at Dundee United and he came to us. I wasn't massively excited about it, but how wrong I was, because it was like we were a perfect fit for him. He was outstanding. What were you,
There
Brian?
was something. Sorry, there was something about the way that Pat McGinley and maybe even just all the players of that era. There was something about the way that they wore the strips, like they sort of like hanging out the shorts. It was kind of like flapping as they ran, and I thought that was really, really cool.
Aye,
After the image of Darren Jackson with there was a strip, and we had the sort of green and white stripes on the sleeve. I can't remember what year that was.
Callergas, wasn't it? Callergas on the front.
Callergas. I think the away strip was purple and green. Yeah, I would say Jackson was cool, I must admit. I think he used to play with the collar up as well. And I don't know if it's just sepia tinged memories. Kevin McAllister for me was just an absolute joy on that right wing. I loved watching. He was probably my favourite, I think. I loved watching him. He just seemed to, as soon as he got the ball, he just wanted to take people on.
One of the best players never to win a Scotland cap. That was a bit of a travesty, because McCrunchy had that type of natural ability that you just can't teach somebody.
A Tanner ball player, as they used to call them.
That's that, aye.
Yep. I loved him. He was my favourite.
You could pick loads for that, like Gorham, Leighton, Burridge. Do you know, like players around that time were all. I mean, 3 outstanding goalkeepers. You've got players like Jackson. Michael O'Neill's another one who is like different class. Still, people talk about who is it? We were playing Motherwell or Dundee United, but he volleyed it.
Oh,
the clips on YouTube, and he just kind of catches the ball on the volley from. Yep. I think it's when McAllister puts the cross in.
That's right. 25 yards, I think.
I mind him chipping a goalkeeper as well from. It was a foggy game. Can't remember who we were playing. Motherwell maybe. Chipped the goalkeeper for the edge of the box. It's sort of the famous 5 end. Aye, what a boy he was. Michael, he was a great player.
He had probably the funniest story out of all the interviewees in this book, lads. It's simple. It's after he left Hibs, but it's when he was playing for Scotland in the World Cup against Brazil, and he said he never had any nerves. Runs right the way through getting changed in the team top. And then they're standing in the tunnel, and Darren Jackson looks to his left and sees Ronaldo, and he thought to himself, "Oh my God, I used to play for Meadowbank Thistle."
No, okay, it's a lot to be said. One of Ronaldo's dreams when he was growing up was to play for Meadowbank. No, a lot of folk ken that, but he needn't have been nervous. So when's the book out, Ian?
Book comes out in mid-March, round about the 13th. It's on hardback through Pitch Publishing, and it's pretty all right. I think you know how I've managed to write it. It's because we had nothing to do last year. I had started writing it after Oblivion to Hampden and thought, this is far too much. I don't know how to structure this because it doesn't have a trophy win other than the Division 1 trophy. And so what I started to do instead was micro match reports, but in coherent chapters. So some matches, there's 2 or 3 sentences. Other matches like big derbies, cup finals, semi-finals, there's 3-4 pages. Anderlecht's away leg has a separate chapter written by one of my outside contributors, a good guy called Matthew Kane, who went to Brussels. And that is brilliant. In fact, that's probably the best bit of the book. And it's kind of written in Edinburgh vernacular as well. And that's a fascinating insight into what the away days were like, European away days before mobile phones and internet. And that's in it. And there's a chapter about, remember we were going to move to Straighton?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Bobby Sinnott, the Hibby historian that I sometimes write with, he wrote us the chapter about the move to Straighton, what it involved, and whether or not it was a good idea. So you've got all that in it as well, not just me slavering about being at the game in the 90s.
I signed up to Hands on Hibs about that move to Straighton, and I went to a meeting at Portobello Town Hall, and I had not a fucking clue what was going on. I was just there, strength in numbers.
An early indicator of things to come. Eh?
I think at this point, actually discussing hands on Hibs, we should probably give our best wishes to John Robertson. I heard the news about him earlier on. I don't know if you guys heard it.
So
No.
I saw the headline, Brian, so I understand he had a family bereavement and has been given some indefinite leave.
He's on compassionate leave, so just what you mentioned, hands on Hibs, I know he was quite prominent back then, so best wishes to him.
Aye, best wishes to him.
Aye, Robbo, although he's put us to the sword, Robbo always had a lot of time for Hibs. He was at hands-off Hibs events, and remember when we stuffed hats in that 98 derby, just relegated, Robbo went round every Hibs player and coach and shook their hand after that match and said, I hope you stay up.
Is that the one that he scored? Is that the one that he scored the free kick in to equalise?
I pinged the free kick in past Brian Gunn at the Dunbar end, but didn't matter. Just like him to get one in his last derby, eh?
Aye.
But I best wishes to him at this sad time.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll move on. Have a wee look at the game for the weekend. Have a wee chat about that. So, John, talk us through your thoughts on the game.
Good 3 points. Wasn't the best performance, but I don't think we really had to do too much. I think sending off maybe changed the game a wee bit. Obviously, Hamilton were probably the better team in the opening exchanges. But games only won and lost in the opening 10-15 minutes. There's a lot of football still to be played after that, and with the exception of the penalty, we took our chances.
Just so you say that, I watched the Man City and Arsenal, and Raheem Sterling scored after 2 minutes and it finished 1-0, John, so I'm not sure if your point stands up. Sorry, mate. Brian, you watched the game in the pub, did you? Or did you? Or
No,
oh, no, the pubs are shut.
The
Your
pubs
home
are
pub.
shut. The home pub, I watched it. So I watched it with my dad. I actually asked him on the way home if he could give me sort of an idea as to how the game went, because I was fairly well lubricated by full time. But I kind of agree with John. First 10 minutes there, the better of it. Sending off changed it, and I think we managed the game well. I think we could have scored more if we really wanted to, but we managed the game well without ever looking in any doubt. Wasn't a brilliant performance, but see right now, it's just about getting 3 points on the board every single weekend. So I would have taken that before the game, and I'll certainly take it now.
Ian, what about you? How did you see the game?
I was expecting a cricket score when they had the man sent off. I was a wee bit disappointed at that. And same with the penalty. We seem to miss a lot of penalties. On the other hand, Ackies they're well organised, but they're not very threatening up front, are they? So we were on a hide into nothing. If we took 5 off them, it would have been expected. But to get the win was, like, what's that, 4 in a row now?
Aye, 4 wins on the bounce.
That's just, it's almost unheard of for us to have a team that usually beats the so-called lesser teams. You know what I mean? We seem to always be up and down. But with the current manager and the current squad, we're getting the results we should be getting. And after this, I'd hope to see some improvement in the matches against Hearts, Celtic and Rangers.
Fingers crossed there. So the sending off is probably the pivotal moment in the game. Brian, you think a red card right decision, or did you have any doubts over it?
I tried to get a decent angle off it to see if the Hamilton boy had touched him. Because I think with the reports, Boyle did knock the ball first. And I think it's funny because after the challenge, my mates in the group chat pretty much to a man, I'd say that was a Brian Dickey tackle. I think if you're going in like that, you have to win the ball. You absolutely have to win the ball. So at first glance, when I seen it, I thought definite red card. Replays made it look a bit more ambiguous, but I'm not going to complain. I'll take that.
What about you, John? How did you see it?
Watching it in real time, it looks, it's no far off looking like a horror challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But like Brian says, when you watch it in subsequent viewings, it's not that bad. But again, like Brian says, if you're going to go in like that, you need to get the ball. I thought it was an odd way that he went in to try and win the ball, because he's gone with, in my opinion, the wrong leg. I thought he maybe could have come in with his left foot and tried to sweep the ball, but
I'd like to have seen him try to dive and header.
Well, I mean, that's certainly a unique way to try and win the ball. But I like, he's forced the referee to make a decision there. And I think I was listening to something earlier that it said that the referee was rash and he was quick to show the red card. But if memory serves me right, he took his time over it, wasn't he? I distinctly remember saying that it looked to me like, to begin with, that he was going to flash a yellow card because he went to his breast pocket, whereas normally I think the red cards are in the back pocket. And then next thing you know, he was off. But I know we've talked about it before, and I know we're no fans of it, the so-called dark arts, but the Hibs fans were quite quick to make themselves known to the referee and voicing their displeasure. They weren't crowding them out, they weren't demanding the sending off, but they were certainly saying, here, you need to have a look at that.
I said the exact thing to my dad. Once he'd made the challenge, I'd say to my dad, they need to get round the referee, because everybody else seems to do it, whereas we either tend to the injured player or just stand and wait. So if you can't beat them, join them. That's what they should do. If you had fans there, you would obviously, would be howling and screaming, which can influence the referee. We've obviously not got fans there, so why no? If it's a bad challenge and it's one of your teammates, try and make the referee's mind up for him. Fuck him.
I think the players did get in quite quick. That's the Darren McGregor influence. That's what we talked about weeks ago when we were bemoaning the lack of leadership on the pitch. And you got players like McGregor who wouldn't stand for that. I'm sure he was one of the first to the referee to say what's going on here. Ian, what do you think? Do you think it was a red card?
Oh, aye. If it had been one of our players who'd done it and been sent off for it, I would have said that was awfully harsh.
Oh, aye. I like that with everyone. When it could be like a player running on with an axe and just decapitating somebody about come in for the ball. Yellow card.
Yellow at most.
Aye. I'm a terrible hypocrite for the referee decisions when it comes to the Hibs. I thought my first reaction was that it was a red card. I didn't think the boy got any of the ball, but then I watched it back and he plays the ball and catches ball with his trailing leg, I think. But as you saw with Porteous getting sent off against Rangers, it's not enough to play the ball now. It's like if you go in and it's deemed excessive force or whatever, or dangerous, endangering an opponent, I think it's the phrase they use, then it's a red card. And I think it ticked those boxes. What about the penalty? Here's a stat for you, and we're no one for stats on this show, Ian. Hibs, I think, are the team with the second highest number of penalties awarded to them this season.
Oh.
Which blows my mind because we never seem to get penalties in, but we've obviously had a decent amount this season.
Is that in all competitions or is that just in the league?
No, it doesn't count the English Premier League or the World Cup.
Off.
the Dominoes. It's so for everyone, Brian. Just give it up.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you really going to come at me with that?
I did.
So one of the things I was thinking about in my head was so we've had the second most number of penalties awarded this season, and Ian made the comment earlier that we seem to have missed quite a few. How many of those 8 penalties have we scored? Because I know obviously we missed one the weekend there, but how many I think it was 8 we've been awarded this season, but how many of the other 7 have we scored and have we missed? I don't know. I mean, like you said, we're no ones for stats.
We've missed quite a lot. I couldn't tell you exactly because Ian, do you know how many penalties we've missed this season?
No, that's not off the top of my head. But I was I'm 43-year-old. I think in 30-year cycles when it comes to Hibs now. We just seems like we do miss a few of them. And on the commentary on Saturday, he says, "Oh, he hit it well enough," but if the goalie goes the wrong way, it's a perfect penalty. If he goes the right way, you've cocked it up, eh?
Yeah.
I think the difference between his penalty at the weekend and the one against Aberdeen was about a yard.
Aye. He was
The
much
one
more
against
central.
Aberdeen was the one against Aberdeen was right in the corner, and that one he just didn't quite find it, and the keeper guessed the right way. Maybe even did his homework for watching the Aberdeen game.
But if you look at, I watched the Man United game yesterday, and Fernandez's penalty, where they said it was a great penalty. Now, if the keeper's dived the right way, it becomes the shittest penalty of the year so far. Aye. So, yeah,
they're only good penalties if they go in, eh?
Aye. But if the keeper's dived the right way, I mean, he's at the pace he's hit it, Fernandez, the keeper could have dived the wrong way and then actually corrected it and dived right and tipped it around the post.
Aye.
Yet, it's a good penalty. Nah, not for me.
I don't think Boyles was a good penalty anyway. He sort of was the kid that it's a good height for the goalkeeper as they're going down. Doesn't have to really work too hard to save it. Penalty right decision?
I thought so. I think
so,
when I watched a quick bang back, I think your mate Colin had said that he'd called for the sending off straight away, and I did the same with the penalty. I know that the replay afterwards looks a bit funny. It was a combination of Doig getting kicked in the stomach and getting tripped by, I think it was Easton.
Yeah.
But I know, definite penalty.
And the goals we got in, so Boyle, Hamilton go down 10 men, pretty much from that free kick. Boyle gets the goal. Cracking finish as well. Ian, what did you think of the goal?
It was stunning. I spilt coffee everywhere when it went in. You can't compliment a goal any better than that, can you?
Yeah, to be fair, it's no one I've ever used to measure it. It's up there though. John, would you think there's no really way you expect the ball to be popping up, or what you would call a typical Martin Boyle goal, was it?
No, it was a really good finish. I was looking back at the replays and that and trying to work out some sort of fantastic insight about it. And the best I can come up with is that, like you say, it's not a typical Martin Boyle finish. Normally his goals are from inside the box, or the one that he scored against Livy a couple of years back, where it was the absolute raker into the top bins. He's taken a couple of touches for the good work for Dougie Tripod, and he's just tucked it away. And I wonder if it's just that lack of expectation about what Boyle was going to do. He's gone for the shot rather than try to hit the byline or try and beat a couple of players.
Yeah, because the keeper seemed to be caught off guard by it, Brian. Like he was.
He went down in more stages in the Tour de France, I must admit. It was Boyle done well, take nothing away from him, but I would be disappointed if I was the keeper there.
I think so. I think a shot that doesn't carry loads of pace from that distance, you would be expecting your keeper to get. But I think the beauty in Boyle's strike is that it's dipped and bounced just before it's reached the goalkeeper, and he's got a bit of swerve in it as well. So he's just bent into that corner. Really good goal.
Yep.
That's the difference between his goal and the penalty that he missed, though. Like, he found the corner with the shot.
Yeah.
He didn't need to leather that into the back of the net. He's just placed it right in the corner.
John, you mentioned the work of Dougie Tripod. So Dougie Tripod, Ian, is young Josh Doig.
Right.
Nickname we picked up on the podcast some weeks back. He was outstanding. What are your thoughts on Doig as a player, Ian?
Seems to get better. He's definitely one to watch, and it's good to see him doing well again after that performance at Parkhead earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. It's good that doesn't seem to harm his confidence like often happens with some players. If they'll press him, we'll struggle to hold on to him, but so we should enjoy him while we've got him there.
Definitely. John, what about you? What's your thoughts on where do you see him reaching in the game?
I'm scared to answer this because you're going to be a smart arse about it.
I'll not be, I promise you. I promise you I'll not be.
Not us, John.
Brian's done.
No, he's a good player. Like he's what? He just turned 19, I think. He's certainly maturing. I think he showed a lot of improvements in his debut season. And he had a really good performance on Saturday there, and I think his goal typified his willingness to get forward. there's no lost cause there.
Yeah.
Always supporting attack. Maybe there's a wee bit to improve on defensively. Early doors, I think he's maybe stood in the ball, which has opened up a shot for Hamilton. But their luck was the way it was on Saturday, that they probably could have played all day and never scored.
Yeah.
So we got away with that one. So I think, but that's the weird thing, You've got a guy at Rangers, Tavernier, right back. He's got something like 10, 11 goals this season. Most of them are penalties, admittedly, but he's absolutely shit at defending. But going forward, he's phenomenal. So I'm loath to criticise Dougie Tripod's defensive abilities too much.
Yeah.
Because as an attacking outlet, there's a lot of promise there.
I tell you who he reminded me of when he was playing was Kieran Tierney. I don't know if you saw similarities with between the two, Brian.
I've read people saying that about him. He's getting better and better. He seems to have come in leaps and bounds actually the last few weeks to what we've seen so far. But I'm hesitant to say he's the next big thing, because I think we Porteous, when he broke onto the scene, we thought he was, and don't get me wrong, he's still got the potential to be outstanding, but he seems to have it. I love seeing him going forward. As John says, he's quite sort of buccaneering when he goes forward. He's happy to take people on. His crossing's not brilliant, but it's by no means the worst. I think we just need to... I actually think Jack Ross is a good manager for him. I think he'll know when to take him out the limelight for a few games, like he did earlier on, where he brought Stevenson back for a few games. I think he'll manage him well, but he seems to have all the potential. I hope he just he realises it and gets managed properly.
It's a really good point that you make about Jack Ross. That came up on Quick Bang as well, where somebody said Jack Ross deserves a lot of credit for how he's handled Josh Doig this season. What do you think, Ian? Do you think Ross has done all the right things with him this season?
Yeah, he's protected him when he's had to, and he's showed faith in the laddie. And on the whole, I think the manager's doing a great job. Can't you really ask for more with Hibs, can you?
Not really. So one of the things I said we would pick up on from Quick Bang. So if anybody hasn't watched Quick Bang for the weekend, we got to a point where we're maybe 2/3 of the way through the show. Everybody was quite happy about the performance, and Jamie, one of the contributors, had said, "Well, we were shite for 10 minutes." And I think in that time, watched the game back. I think Hamilton had 4 or 5 shots on goal, including hitting the post in that first 10-minute spell. Maybe 3 or 4 shots, round about that. Anyway, certainly more than Hibs had. And he was loath to kind of praise the rest of the performance because really the sending off had changed the game. I think we've maybe covered that, but the next point we came on to talk about was team selection and continuing to keep Kevin Nisbet on the bench. So, John, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on that? Should Kevin Nisbet be playing?
He was dropped, I think. I can't remember what the game was, but it was obviously after the transfer window, the speculation, the rumoured transfer request that he handed in. Mm-hmm. And since then, Hibs have had 4 wins on the spin. And the team was changed. The team's been tweaked a wee bit, and we've started playing slightly differently. And it's hard to just say, Kevin Nisbet should be playing. Because I feel like, and I think I've made this position pretty clear before, that you can't just shoehorn a guy into the squad. You have to have a balance there, and I think at the moment Hibs have got a really good balance in terms of you've got Cadden out on the right, who's allowing Martin Boyle to play up front, and Martin Boyle seems to have a bit of freedom, and he's using that freedom really well. Christian Doig is acting like a target man, which is a wee bit odd because last season he had something like 17 goals and he's maybe only scored something like 3 this season, if you're lucky. but there's a lot of work that he's doing there for the players around him. Like a lot of his hold-up play. You saw it probably best when he laid up Colquhoun for his wonder strike for whoever it was. But then, at the weekend there was a couple of times as well where he's been in the mix. And I think had it not been for the fact that the Hamilton defender deflects the ball into Dougie Tripod's path, Doig just sitting there, he's just ready to stroke it in. And didn't get me wrong, like it probably needed to go off his forehead and the keeper and the crossbar first, but I think he was probably going to score for that position. And I don't think that Kevin Nisbet provides that same foil for Jamie Murphy and Martin Boyle, either side of him. So I wouldn't just put him as like an automatic name on the team sheet at the moment. He needs to work his way back into the squad. And I think with the way that Jack Ross tweaks things ever so slightly, he's probably going to find game time at some point. But this is probably going to be another learning part of his football career. Like he's going to have to learn to spend some time on the bench. Like you're going to have to learn that you're not guaranteed a spot.
Aye, it's an interesting one, Ian. If you put yourself in Jack Ross's shoes and you think that you've got a potential £3 million plus pound striker sitting on the bench, and you know if you don't play him, that value depreciates, and there's a risk that when the time comes to move him on, you're not going to get that money. But at the same time, you've got a settled team who's winning games. What are you doing? Would you be tempted to throw Nisbet back in, or are you siding with the view that he should take bide his time?
Well, we're winning games. Maybe he would have got a couple at the weekend there, and it would have been a more convincing victory. It's always a tough one, but the manager's got to. It's a tricky one. I'm glad I'm not the manager, because do you change the winning team, or do you bring the starlet back? It's working now, so he's justified in keeping things as they are now. It's just handy to have, as you say, a £3 million player on the bench. Not often you've been able to say that about Hibs.
Okay. Brian, by the same token, we've kept Porteous on the bench as well.
Aye, and I think that's where they should stay. It's a winning team. I think for Nisbet's or his agent's misdemeanours, it happened probably at the same time, roughly, where we brought Cadden in to free up Boyle. And as John says, Doig, for me, listen, strikers get judged on goals, but what Doig brings to that team brings you a better performance for those around them. I don't think Nisbet's got any stake to be demanding a game. He's been brilliant this season. He's scored loads of goals, but like we say, Hibs have won 4 on the spin, and everybody's playing well. So, sorry, son, bide your time.
Aye, you need to wait.
I think something else that he would do well to do, and I know that obviously chances are going to be limited if he's only getting 10, 15 minutes at the end of the game, but he did have a couple of chances at the weekend. They're half chances, quarter chances, however you want to describe them. But if he's this so-called £3 million striker, I think he needs to be proving that on the games that he comes on, and really make the manager aware of who he is and what he brings to the team.
He's potentially fucked it for himself for the European Championships, if you ask me.
I suppose maybe it's a masterstroke by Jack Ross and keeping him out of the team for a wee bit, because you're then, we've got 8 games left, something like that. What you want to have then is a really good player chomping at the bit to come in and make an impression and stake a late claim for the Euro. So you maybe have the time Nisbet comes back in. If he starts soon, you've got a player who's determined to show he's worth every penny that teams were wanting to spend on him. So it might work out. Probably the best kind of few games that Nisbet's had have been the ones that he's been on the bench.
Aye.
Talking of the last few games, Celtic got beat through the week there, which was a bit of a surprise. Ross County beating them. Does that leave the door open a little bit for second place, Ian?
You would hope. And on the last point, if the laddie Nisbet were to make a comeback in the team, what a time to come back if he's banging them in. We've got a chance to do something really different if we finish the season well. Celtic don't look great. They're there for the taking. It's all about that age-old Hibernian issue of consistency, though, isn't it?
Definitely. What are your thoughts there, Brian? Should we push for second? You think we'll do it?
No, Matthew, no. No chance. It would be nice, but if Hibs gets second, I will go full 1980s German and keep the top part of my head bald, and I will just grow a mullet at the back. There you go. And I'll change my name by Deedpool to Helmet.
I think we're running out of games. I think that if we'd maybe had been 4 games extra in the season to play, and the form continued, I'd fancy our chances a wee bit more. John, you're the optimist in the podcast. What's your heart and your head telling you?
I think third's the target, and I think second's a bit of a stretch goal, if you like. Second's not mathematically impossible, but I think back to a couple of years ago where we had this run post-Christmas, post-January, where we only lost that one game. Mm-hmm. And if we'd won it, there was every chance that we were going to take third, I think, from Rangers. Things obviously went a wee bit awry in the last couple of games, but we were so tantalisingly close. And we're not the same team, because that team was phenomenal. Like that was, I think, the way that Brian described Dougie Tripod earlier, buccaneering, swashbuckling. Like we had that quality about us then. I don't think we have that same quality, but we touch wood. We do seem to have that wee bit resiliency and able, dragging out the 3 points at the moment. And if we can keep doing that, if we can have that consistency, then come the split, against in the games against Celtic, that's one of the exciting things about football. Sometimes, like I think I've said before about looking at the fixtures and the league table in front of us. Like you wouldn't have looked at Ross County beating Celtic. You would have thought, Christ, Celtic will be too strong for them. Yeah. But Celtic are having, as Ian says, like a real sticky patch. And if we can keep up, if we can take the points that I think we might take prior to the split, going into the split, it's a totally different perspective, the Scottish Premiership. And fuck knows, like, there's people at the moment getting a wee bit tumescent about the possibility of Europa League after Christmas.
I'm fucking shocking.
You imagine being back at Easter Road and the possibility of Champions League football. Like that's exciting in itself. Like just the possibility. Yeah. Let's see where this can go.
It's an interesting thing because I think I looked on Hibs on it earlier, and somebody had put up what the permutations are. So if we finish second, we would have, I think, at least one qualifying game for the Champions League, which you look at the teams that you'd have to play again in the Champions League, chances of us winning that are pretty slim. So then I think you go into Europa League qualifier, and if you lose that one, you then go into the conference qualifier as well. But if we finish third and don't make the Europa League, we go into the group stages of the conference if the Scottish Cup doesn't go ahead. So there's all these permutations, but third might actually end up better for us for Europe than second. Although I don't know whether the money for a Champions League qualifier and the prestige, like I can't think of a sport where you would want to finish a position lower. You want to finish as high as you can.
Jag, get me the Jag. I want to be back at Easter Road for European football. Let's all get fucking involved in that. Imagine Easter Road on that night. Like that could be the potentially, in my head at least, the first game back at Easter Road. Easter Road will be fucking rammed. Leith Walk will be rammed. Leith will be fucking rammed. It'll be fucking epic.
I can't wait for the first game back. I can't wait for the first game. I think there'll be folk in tears at the first game back. Genuinely do, eh? I think folk will be that emotional with being back.
I'm taking tissues one way or another.
Aye.
Probably still be tier 2 or tier 1. You're right.
Nah.
Right, Motherwell on Saturday. Very quickly then, what's going to happen in that game, Brian?
I don't know. Are we home or away?
I think we're at Easter Road again. Let me just double check.
If we were away, I would have said we'd win 3-0. But we're at home, so we're going to win 2-1.
2-1. John?
Aye, Hibs are at home. Staying optimistic. I know I've not had a look at my spreadsheet to see what our form is home and away. I know people have said that we're better away from home, but we've won the last 2 games at Easter Road, 2-0. So got to be optimistic. And Motherwell are having a wee bit of a sticky patch as well. So let's try and take advantage of it.
Motherwell are all over the place now. Where they got pumped for St Johnson, and then who was it? Hamilton pumped them the week before. There's no like the great teams that are hammering them. But that, how often have we seen that with teams coming to Easter Road? It's like famous last words. If ever you want to kind of guarantee an away win, this is the circumstances for it. On back-to-back home wins for the first time since 2018. I was going to say 1998. That's because we were talking about the 90s earlier. 2000. It's not been that long. 2018. So the chances of 3 back-to-back wins, Ian.
It's possible. Christ, every Hibs Motherwell game I've ever been to seemed to be a score draw. There must have been about 15 of them over the years. So for that reason, I think we'll win 2-0 at the meeting.
I'm liking the logic behind that as well. I'm going to go for a comfortable 1-0. We'll miss loads of chances. They'll no trouble us, and we'll see it out 1-0. Right, that's pretty much us for this evening. Ian, best of luck with the book. Your Twitter handles at the Hibs Are Here.
Yeah, that's right. That's the account for the book, and also been posting a lot of content on it just to try and cheer folk up in this horrible lockdown.
The clips have been brilliant. So I saw the one earlier on today with Jim Leighton having to go off. I think he was getting his contact lens fixed or something like that, and Darren Jackson chucking a goalie top on, and for a period it looked like Celtic were playing against us, but we had no goalkeeper on.
It was a clash of heads. Jim Leighton and John Collins, and they both got took off, and that clown of a referee, he's let play continue after Jacko took the goalie top off, and like the Celtic players passed it about for about a minute, staring at the referee, and then John Collins chipped it into the net, and the goal got chopped off. Farce only in Scotland,
You wouldn't want to bang heads with John Collins, That would be fucking safe.
Oh, no.
So you care which angle you're going to get. It's like, like getting heated off a set square.
A lot of edges.
Get out.
Well, everybody should, if you listen, go and follow the at the Hibs Are Here. Great wee account, and some of the clips have been fantastic. I loved watching them. That's us for the night. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back on Thursday with Short Bangers. John, you look like you wanted to say something there.
No, it just dawned on me. The penny finally dropped when you were talking about the Hibs Are Here. I've been watching the old videos, and I just never made the connection until right now. I was like, oh, fuck, it's those ones. No, they are good videos, and I've really enjoyed them. So thanks for doing that, Ian.
No bother. And thanks for having. I'll see you at the back of the goals,
Aye, you're very welcome. I should say a thanks to Gordon Smith for the bounce as well, who put us in touch with Ian as well and set this up. Thanks very much, Gordon. Right, back on Thursday for Short Bangers, Quick Bangs on Saturday. If you want to come on, give us a DM on Twitter and we'll get you on. In the meantime, take care and enjoy the game when it comes. See you later.
Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink what I know.